Me. My name is Alex Bynum. I am the newer Director of Military and Adult Education here at the Unsinkable ASU. And I'm really glad to have Evan coming here to speak today. If you didn't know, I spent 16 years at the University of Alabama before I came here. And as a higher education administration personnel, there are people in your life and there are students in your life who change the trajectory of where you go. And Evan was one of those persons for me. He was one of the first veterans I met starting working in military adult education. His story of how he used his education and continues to use his education is a really inspiring story that I think all of you will get a lot out of in the next 30 minutes. I have muted everybody, so just so that you know that you will not be able to use your camera or you won't be able to turn yourself off mute. So if you'd like to ask Evan a question after he finishes, I will then open it up and you can just put it in the chat box. So I'll start by introducing Evan Van Nostrand, who is a retired sergeant from the United States Marine Corps. He grew up in Long Island, New York, and enlisted in the Marine Corps in 2005 after graduating from Smithtown High School. While serving in the Marine Corps, he obtained the rank of sergeant and deployed to Operation Freedom twice, Operation Enduring Freedom Afghanistan once, and a deployment abroad on the USS Fort Henry as part of the 22nd Marine Expeditionary Unit. His awards include 2 Purple Heart medals, 3 Navy and Marine Corps Achievement medals with 1 combat distinguishing and 2 combat action ribbons. After medically retiring from the United States Marine Corps in 2012, Evan attended the University of Alabama from 2013 to 2017 and obtained his BS in Kinesiology. Upon graduating from the University of Alabama, Evan was hired as an intern for the Alabama Crimson Tide Strength and Conditioning Department. While serving as an intern, Evan has been part of the #1 championship winning team, 1 SEC championship team, and also the finalist in another national champion. In March of 2019, Evan was hired by Coach Nick Saban to be the Assistant Director of Player Development for Alabama football. And he just recently told me he has started his master's degree program, finishing up his GI Bill. If you'll all please help me welcome Evan.
Hey, thanks, Alex. So I think Alex pretty much covered a lot of things about who I am. So I grew up on Long Island, as she said, and September 11th had a really big effect on who I would end up becoming because of, I grew up in New York and I was 14 when that happened. So myself and a bunch of my friends, we decided that we'd join the Marine Corps. So subsequently I'd end up deploying to Iraq, Afghanistan, got the t-shirt and got to see the world per se. So I was medically retired from the Marines in 2012. And when I was medically retired, it was something that was very difficult for me. I didn't know what I wanted to do because I had planned on serving my country the rest of my life. So when I got out, I tried to find jobs. And at the time, it wasn't the best market to try and find a job when you were an infantry Marine. And a lot of times I would go into an interview and I would be asked, you don't have your college degree. Do you ever have aspirations to obtain your college degree? And it became a repetitive theme that me getting a job that was worth something in the civilian world would require me to get my education. So my roommate at the time was a big Alabama fan, went to the university. Then he decided he was going to join the Marine Corps. So brought me down for a game. I decided, this is where I want to go to school. His parents got that rolling for me and ended up coming to school at the University of Alabama, which I'm forever grateful for. As I transitioned out of the Marine Corps and into civilian life, it wasn't the easiest thing because, the military breaks you down and turns you into what they need. They turn you into what they view as efficient for the military. But being efficient for the military isn't always the most efficient thing for civilian world. It's not always the mold that fits for the civilian world. And I struggled when I got out, and I struggled with realizing that things aren't the same when you're in the military. And, a couple of things that I wanted to go over with everybody tonight was, first off, one thing that I struggled with, and I don't want to sound negative with it, but your country doesn't owe you anything. And the sooner that you can realize that, you can move on from what you were in the military and start becoming who you're supposed to be as a civilian. And, what your country does owe you, you get it through the VA. And I encourage everybody to absolutely use every resource that you have earned through the VA. But, I watched a lot of veterans here struggle with the transition from being a veteran or being in the military to becoming a civilian because they can't let go that they're no longer in the military. They can't let go that this 18, 19-year-old kid that's in class with you doesn't quite understand what you're going through or what you went through. And it's not their responsibility. It's not, that's why we serve during a time where it's an all-volunteer force. So that's why I say, they don't owe you anything because you volunteered for this. You volunteered to go overseas. You volunteered to serve your country during, the time that we live in. And the other thing that I've come to realize is this generation, only 38% of them believe that terrorism is a real threat to our country. So the military doesn't mean as much to them as some of us would like. And it's no fault of their own. This is just the way that they were raised, especially a lot of these ones that are, I'm dealing with kids that are in college right now that they weren't even born when September 11th happened. So they can't relate to what you've been through. They can't relate to what you've grown up into. And it's not their fault. So that's what, back to, they don't owe you anything. It's not a negative connotation. It's just the fact that it's misunderstandings between two different generations or two different groups too, because there's less people believing that terrorism is a threat. I'm sure there's less people that believe that serving your country is what you're supposed to do. So that's why I commend any veterans that are in this room right now, and you'll always be my hero because you're answering a call that not a lot of people today are willing to do or willing to sacrifice for the good of their country. With that being said, to get back into the civilian world, you have to adapt and overcome. What you were in the military it's not who you are going forward. It's who you were. It's something that to build off of, and it's something that you have to keep in the back pocket, and it's something that's going to help separate you from, the normal 18 to 19-year-old that's going to college. So the other thing I wanted to cover is that right now, more than ever, our country needs leaders, and you guys are prime candidates to be the leaders that can change the way that we are living today. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of social issues that are being touched upon. But right now, more than anything, our country needs leaders. And having served your country, you understand what servant leadership is. And servant leadership is probably, one of the most important things to becoming a leader, because you understand what it means to give to something more than yourself. And I've been very fortunate, very lucky to be in the situation that I'm in, that I get to constantly mentor and talk to kids about social problems. We talk about things. We listen. I listen to what they have to say. They listen to what I have to say. And right now, that's how we change the world. That's how we change the world that we're living in, is that we need people that were willing to sacrifice for the greater good, been through different experiences than most people today probably have not gone through. And I believe that as veterans, we can help change the narrative of where this country is going. Because no matter what branch you served in, you're already a peg ahead of everybody else when it comes to leadership. You've seen good leadership. You've probably all had to be leaders at some point, being in the military. So be a leader in your communities, be a leader in your classrooms and your neighbors, friends, and loved ones. Be a leader for them. And that's how we can change the world that we live in today. Something that Coach Saban always talks about with our guys is building value for yourself, and going back to nobody owes you anything. Your service to your country isn't who you are as a person, it's a part of what makes you valuable as a citizen. When I went through being an intern at 28 years old, when everybody else that I was interning with was somewhere between 18 and 24. They were either just got done with college, some of them were still in college. I had to separate myself from them and make what created more value for myself was the fact that the things that I learned in the military, being a good team player, working hard, having the discipline, because there's a lot of kids right now that don't know how to wake up at 8 o'clock or before the sun comes up. In the military, you don't have a choice but to be disciplined. You don't have a choice but to be a team player. You don't have a choice but to be a leader. So those are things that set you apart from your competition, your peers, the people that are trying to get jobs just as much as you are. So that's why I say the military isn't who you'll have to be going forward, but there's things from the military that you should always keep with you that'll help you move up the corporate ladders, get positions that are highly sought after. So that's what helped make me successful, is the fact that I was willing to do things that most people were not willing to. I was never too good to do something, because it, just as in the military, when you have a job to get done, it needs to get done. It doesn't matter how it gets done, just get it done. And a lot of people in the civilian world respect that. And that's one thing that I preach upon, is keep what you learn, but adapt it to where it fits into being a regular civilian. So I've been very blessed and fortunate to be a part of this organization and work for who will go down as probably one of the greatest college football coaches in history. And, I credit a lot of what I am because of the military, but it's not what defines me. A lot of times the players find out that I was in the military by accident. Either they stumbled across my social media page, whatever. I don't beat my chest about it. Humility is crucial when it comes to going forward when you leave the military. So that's all I really have for y'all. Does anybody have any questions for me?
I do. So one of the questions I had for you was, I know from just knowing you that you started, you joined when you were 17, is that right?
Yes.
So you thought Marine for life, that was going to be your career. When that had to change and you were deciding what your educational path would be, how did you make that decision that kinesiology and sports management, that this is what you wanted to do?
So actually, I started as a financial planning major. And I remember sitting in class and I was looking at a PowerPoint on life insurance and annuities, and coming from the infantry, where I was on my feet all the time, a different day every day. Since you're never going to have the same thing every day. It was at that point I realized that advising somebody on finances and annuities and life insurance was not for me. So at that point, my boss at the time, Scott Cochran, had a 60 Minutes on strength and conditioning built by BAML, and I realized that that's what I want to do. To me, that's exactly what was what I was doing in the military, building people up and being a leader and a mentor. So at that point, I changed my major.
And my other question was going to be, is coming from New York, having a Marine background, plus, are you first generation? Is that correct?
What's
college?
That?
Are you first generation college?
No.
But just coming from a different background and coming to the University of Alabama, what was the biggest shock coming to college? That first couple of months of just trying to get used to being in an academic environment.
I think the difficult for me was somebody wasn't always checking your work. Somebody wasn't always on top of you, making sure something was done right. So I struggled because of the fact that I went from such a disciplined background into where somebody's not checking everything. So I struggled because I took my foot off the gas, and all of a sudden, I wasn't studying as much. I realized that you get away with not doing assignments, and nobody was you weren't gonna be in trouble for it. Your grades would reflect, but I think I struggle with that, where having to learn how to self-motivate myself again. I think that's a big thing, because you go from doing what you're told when you're told and how to do it to nobody is telling you how to do something.
What academic skill did you learn just being in college, but you didn't get from the military? What was something you learned in college of how to study or just how to organize yourself that you didn't get from the military, but you got from being a college student?
I think from being a college student was being able to come up with your own schedule and being able to manipulate your schedule, because I worked while I was also an undergrad. So, but being able to manipulate your schedule and learn how to fit different things into your schedule. It's not just the same thing every day. I think that was something I learned from undergrad. And the other thing was being able to connect with today's generation. I feel that I've done a good job at being able to connect to this younger generation, understand the whole Instagram, Twitter, and all of that. So, most influential person in the Marines. I had the privilege to work for Brian Stan, who would end up going on to be a UFC fighter. And he was my first lieutenant when I first went to Iraq. And he actually, at the time, hindsight 2020, I shook it off when he told me, you need to get out and get your degree and blah, blah, all this stuff. And I never really listened to him. But he gave me a lot of lessons on life. He gave me a lot of lessons on managing finances and kind of like a fatherly or big brother figure. So I really learned a lot from him while I was in.
What resource would you say is the number one that veterans, once they get out, they need to make sure they take advantage of?
Getting connected with your VA hospital or VA medical center that you have. There was a rough part in my life where I had to actually medically withdraw from school, and being connected to the VA hospital here in Tuscaloosa probably saved my life, A, and B, it taught me that it's okay to ask for help. It taught me that it's okay that you didn't come back completely normal from Iraq or Afghanistan, and the VA system here in Tuscaloosa, I know that everybody hears different stories about it, but the one that I had the privilege of going to took care of me very well. And, my mental health is great right now. I'm in a great place. Like I said, I've been really lucky and really blessed to be in the position that I'm in, working for Coach Saban, working for this football program. My body, on the other hand, doesn't always feel so great, but that's just my age catching up to me, I think.
But I think that's something that most veterans that I have struggled with, is that physical limitation that was caused from being in the military for that long. It does limit you on what you used to be able to do and what you can do. And, you're not that old. you're in your 30s. So it's not like that you are going to have more physical problems as a veteran coming out of that system than, like you said, as someone as a civilian.
And I think it's important that you stay in touch with your veteran office, because they can help advocate for you, help you with talking to the professors, the deans, whoever it needs to be. When I had to medically withdraw, it really helped having our veterans office here, because I think Alex helped build us up to, I think, one of the top 20, if not higher than that, veterans offices in the country. Like I said, coming down here too, it really, it's eye-opening. It's eye-opening working with the youth today, and I'm trying to understand where they're coming from.
So would you say that the generation you saw going through college in 2012 through 2017 is different than this generation that you're with?
Yes, absolutely. This generation now that we're dealing with coming through, if you think about it, most of us didn't have Facebook or Instagram until we were probably in our 20s or 30s. And these guys are all, as soon as they're 5, 6, or whenever they get their first phone or they're allowed to have their first computer, they're already plugged into the internet. They're plugged into all the social media and everything. It's a fight that we have with our players all the time. And I try and inform them how to properly use social media. Nobody's telling you to use it, but I think in doses it needs to be prescribed, because a lot of our players, for instance, I'm going to use an example. They have 30,000 followers. They probably know 500 of those people, maybe.
Maybe.
But for them, when they post something and they get 20,000 likes, all of a sudden that 20,000 people means more than the 10 coaches that we have here that are trying to teach them something, because they have the instant satisfaction of gratification from 20,000 likes saying that play that they posted a picture of is the most important thing in the world. And it's, something that to them, it's like they're patting themselves on their back all the time. I think that, I think social media is playing a big part in this generation. I think that everybody needs, kind of take it for what it is. You can't watch the news these days or go online without seeing one side or the other. I think people are struggling with the ability to come up with their own point of view or their own opinion on matters. And, I think that adds fuel to everything that's going on right now.
And I really like what you said is, talking about your Marine mentor. Like you said, they're listening more to social media than the people around you who could see what you're doing every day and really make a influence on your daily life if you connect with those administrators, connect with those people that you can look up to. Do you have any advice of how to do that, how to find that mentor? Because you've been very successful in finding those people. You
have to be open and willing to listen. You have to, like I said, a lot of veterans that struggle, they beat their chest. Oh, I'm a veteran. I did this and I did that. But you have to remember that you're still a person, and learning is always something that's continuous. So you have to be able to drop that guard of you're this or that, and be willing to listen to people, because there's always going to be somebody that might be smarter than you. There's always going to be somebody that might understand something way better than you'll ever understand it. My boss right now is actually younger than I am. But I listen to what he's got to tell me. I listen to what he does, because there's a reason why he's 2 years younger than I am, but in a higher position. So I think that the big thing is being able to, once again, humility.
So any parting words to the military population and those that work with the military population in an education environment of what you would like to see from, like I said, anything you can want to say?
I just want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. And, the big thing is create your own value, never stop learning, and then set goals for yourself. And just remember that the military isn't who you have to be going forward. It's a stepping stone. It's something that you need to keep in your back pocket. And then, but be leaders. Our country needs leaders right now, and that's the biggest thing, is our country needs leaders. And for everybody that's a veteran in here, thank you, and God bless.
Well, thank you, Evan, so much for your time. It is very sincerely appreciated.
Absolutely.
And I thank y'all for joining us today on Veterans Day. We are really building a program here at ASU to honor our military and connect you with the resources you need. So if you are a military service member or you know people, that military and adult education is the office to send them to, and we'll make sure that they get taken care of and continue their academic journey and get where they need to go, like Evan is doing for himself. Thank you all, and I really appreciate y'all's time.